When Chloe was born, obviously the circumstances surrounding Chloe's birth were very difficult. I understand that, I accept that. Mum and Dad were both quite young when Chloe was born.
This is Diana we're talking about.
Diana is the girlfriend, actually, of my son, my youngest son. Chloe was born 7 weeks premature, very difficult circumstances. It must have been dreadful for Diana. She was not very old herself, as was Matthew, not very old. We did everything we could to assist them. They lived with us, we gave them a home. We did that because we loved them all, not just because Matthew was my son. We loved Diana, obviously we loved Chloe, and we loved Matthew. Well, that was in 1997, Chloe was born. Last June, Diana rang me on the 3rd of June and told me that she didn't feel she was part of this family. There's a long history in between those dates, obviously, which the programme's only an hour long. I haven't got time to go into all that. And it may or may not be relevant. It is relevant to me, obviously. But on the 3rd of June last year, Diana phoned me and said that they weren't coming to a family occasion that was...
This is the wedding?
There was a wedding taking place in July. They weren't going to come. Chloe wasn't going to be a bridesmaid. She didn't feel that they were part of the family, and I haven't seen Chloe since.
But when she rang you saying that, and I know she had views on why she didn't want to go to the wedding, which had nothing to do with you, presumably you said, what are you talking about? You're not a part of the family. Of course you're a part of the family.
Obviously I did say that.
And what did she say in response?
I said, why do you feel that? Where's all this coming from?
Yeah.
And it related apparently to the day, 2 days previous, when we'd gone out to buy some shoes for the bridesmaids, Chloe included, obviously. And I was unable to go back to Diana's house with them because I'd forgotten something in town that my husband had asked me to buy. And I'd forgotten it, and it started to rain. So I let them go rather than all the children hanging around. There were 3 young children with us, in fact 4. And none of us had any coats, and I just said, well, you go on and I'll go and do what I've got to do. And that was really the last time I spent any time with Diana.
And you haven't seen Chloe since last June?
I haven't seen Chloe since June. I've seen her in the street when I've been in the car.
Well, you passed them by?
Well, I've been in the car.
They live nearby?
I believe they've moved now, away from the town that I live in.
What do you feel about being excluded from seeing Chloe?
Well, I would really like to know why, Robert. It's why, and I feel...
I've told you several times why, haven't I? We've gone through argument after argument, and everything I say you disagree with.
What's the why? What's the why?
What's the why? The why is, I know she was only working part-time when her other granddaughter was born, but that didn't change the fact that when my daughter was born, still the majority of the time, you had your other granddaughter with you. Yes, you did.
So hang on, the first thing is you feel that she spent more time with the other grandchild than she with yours, right? Even though she's explained...
we live locally.
OK, what's the next reason?
Right. Chloe's first Easter, did you or did you not get her anything?
Robert, I went out and bought an Easter egg for the older child, obviously, and I said to Diana, I won't get Chloe an Easter egg. She was, what, 4 months old?
You did not. You got Alexa a big chicken for her first Easter.
I asked Diana what would she like for Chloe for Easter. She didn't say anything at the time.
You don't buy an Easter egg at 4 months old, necessarily, do you?
That. It was the issue that she'd got an Alexa a big chicken for Easter, for her first Easter. My daughter's first Easter, she had nothing, right? Yeah. She didn't say anything to me about getting us something afterwards. The only time she mentioned it was after I confronted her about the fact that she'd not got her anything.
So that was the one thing, OK.
Yeah,
you confronted her, presumably you resolved that, and she presumably had reasons about why she was forgetful or whatever.
No, not really. She didn't have a reason. She made up an excuse like she has every time.
Why would she do that? So it's not just that. Every time you're suggesting there's a part of the...
Did she tell you about the time when I was pregnant, living with her? Her son made me a cup of tea when he came home from work. The following day...
Her son, you mean your partner?
Yeah, the following day, she phoned me up at her house when he'd gone to work to have a go at me because he made me a cup of tea. You know? What is so wrong with a boyfriend making his girlfriend who's pregnant a cup of tea? She obviously had a problem with it. Don't say you don't remember, because I've confronted you about it several times before.
I do remember.
Well, do you think that's a nice way to behave to somebody? You want me to let you in my daughter's life when you can't treat any of us civilly? You treat us the way you treat us, and we're supposed to say that's okay.
So we never did anything for you.
I'm not
we
saying that.
Give you a home.
Have I said that you didn't do anything for us? I'm not disputing
But you've just said that I couldn't treat you civilly.
But your problem was you thought money could buy everything.
No, Diana.
When I asked you to spend time with her, you let me down. But then when it came to buying something, you thought it made up for everything. And when I explained it didn't, that's when all the problems started.
But you made the issue about buying things a moment ago.
Yeah.
It was important to you then that, that
it's not
Chloe
about
hadn't
the
been
cost.
bought an
It's
Easter
not
egg.
about the cost. It's about
attitude.
remembering the fact that it was Chloe's first Easter, the way she'd remembered it was her other granddaughter's Easter. If I was
It's everybody's Easter, Diana.
If I was a mother or if I was a grandmother, if I had 2 children, would I buy one an Easter present and not buy the other one?
Have you always got on, you two?
No. No.
Is that what the issue is?
No, I think...
Why, you don't get it. Obviously, there's a problem between you two. But the person who's losing out on this...
Is Chloe.
No, she's not. No, she's not.
Of
She's
course
got
she is.
grandparents. She's perfectly happy.
She will. She's a grandmother.
Have you met her? Do you know
I've
whether
not
she's
met
happy
your
or not? No.
granddaughter, but I've got a grandchild I don't see. But the fact
Yours
is,
probably different circumstances.
yeah,
aren't
but
they?
it's like a bitterness underneath. You're being bitter towards your mother, and it seems
She's
like
not
you're
my
boiling
mother.
down to money. Mother-in-law, sorry. You're boiling down to money. It
No,
doesn't
it's not
matter.
boiling
It's the
down to
time
money.
and the
It's
love that
time.
your
Yeah,
mother
that's
can
what
give.
I'm asking her for, and that's
Diana,
not what she's giving us.
Let Maureen finish.
No.
Go on, Maureen.
Just sit here and let people have
She's
a go
Maureen.
at me,
No,
sir.
she's not having a go
I don't want to have a go
She's not
at
having
you.
a go.
You're senior, you don't know what's
Well,
going
let her
on.
explain her
You're
circumstances.
senior, having a go at me. No,
take
I'm not.
Stop. Take a deep breath. Relax. Stop.
I'm sorry if I've upset you.
She has got us
Come
to
here, come
help
here,
right now. I'm not going to let you do it.
What happened to you, Maureen?
Well, my circumstances are slightly different. My son was killed 4.5 years ago. He had a son prior to marriage when he first left school, and this is my grandson of 19 years. I have kept in touch with this grandson for 19 years. So when my son in marriage of 6 years was killed, and his wife had all the say as to whether I should see the grandson or I shouldn't, I was having home visits from the little one while my son was alive, because they were going through a very bitter divorce. She allowed me to see him for 2.5 hours at her beck and call. I stood in the rain. I waited and I waited. I returned him to the places where my son had been, and it broke my heart because it involved my son. But I cannot get it through to my daughter-in-law that I've got loads of time, I've got loads and loads of love. I've got 7 other grandchildren, and I hope I treat them all equally. But it doesn't boil down to gifts. It doesn't boil down to money. It boils down to this precious, precious time. And my son always told me I was an anchor in his life. I want to be that anchor for their children, the grandchildren, and the grandchildren that will follow one day.
Can I ask if your daughter-in-law is married again?
No, she was in an arrangement 6 months after my son was killed.
In a relationship, you mean?
Yeah, in a relationship.
Sound like an arranged marriage here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No, she was in a relationship,
Yeah.
and I encouraged that relationship. I want her to go forward. I want her to be married. I am not bitter at her for wanting to fulfill her
Sometimes
life.
it's the new partner who sort
No,
of wants
the partner
to
was
take
my
the
son's
role.
ex-friend.
Right, so he wouldn't have
He-
had anything to do with the prohibition.
No, nothing. And I don't know anything, because even at the court case of my son, I was his mum. I'd already
What
gone
court
through a lot
case?
of anger because he was killed. You have to go, they have, I can't think of the
The
name.
post-mortem and the
all
inquest,
that.
yeah.
I was not involved. I'm his
any of
mother.
that.
He's living with me. And I'm there and I care. And I wanted to protect that boy of his as much as I want to protect this young man.
This is your grandson.
This is my
another
grandson of
yeah,
19 years.
You're talking about your son, and we were talking with Diana, who I hope is going to come back and
Back,
play a further
yeah.
part in the programme, but we'll have to wait and see about that, who is a daughter-in-law who's preventing mother-in-law from seeing their grandchildren. Why do you not let your mother see your son?
Basically, the way that she's treated me and my husband throughout my life and from the time that me and my husband have been together, I don't want my son growing up as nervous as what I am, as low self-esteem, because basically every time I've tried to speak to her about anything, I've always been shouted down. And I've never
What,
ever...
as a child, you mean you were shouted down?
Yeah, all the way through. And I haven't spoken to my mum since last September. And basically, even then, that was over the phone, and it was just a complete and utter slanging match. And she just degrades me and puts me down all the time. And
Well, why would she do that?
I don't know. All I've ever wanted from my mum is for her to say, I love you, Juliet, you are what you are, and give me a hug.
But she brought you up.
Yeah.
And she must have showed you some affection. She must have been responsible for you, cared for you, nurtured you.
In her own way.
But
maybe.
what is it?
I
What was
can't
her?
remember the last time that she actually told me that she loved me.
Some people find that difficult to do. It doesn't mean to say that she doesn't love you. I'm not suggesting that this is right. I know that I've had big blokes like your fella sitting there who are saying the same things as you say because they've never had their father or their mother put their arms around them and say they loved them or kissed them, and who find themselves incapable of doing it to their own sons, though they want to. So it's conceivable that your mother... conceivable.
But she can do it to my brother and sister.
Oh, right. What, she puts her arms around them and says she loves them? Okay.
She's always there.
Well, OK, presumably you said, why you do it to them and not to me?
Yes, I have.
And what she said?
She just says, I do it to you. And I say, well, when? When was the last time you actually said, well done, Juliet, you've done that really well. Like, I've done my TS scheme after school, I passed my exams, and I cannot remember her saying, congratulations, you've done that really well.
But she's your mother, and she's Declan's grandmother.
I don't want Declan to grow up insecure like me.
Well, why he won't, will he? Because he's got you.
No, he won't. I won't allow it.
No, exactly. But why then deprive him of this additional person who can bring something to him and to his development?
Hatred, though.
But she wants to see him, doesn't she?
After a hell of a long time. She's had other openings.
But it's not as if she's walked away and said, I don't want to know, I don't care. But she tried. This is mother-in-law.
Yeah.
She tried through you, didn't she?
Yes,
to see.
yes.
She asked you to mediate.
I phoned her. No, she phoned me, and I said, you can always come up, drop things off, or come up and talk, and I'll give you photographs. And all the time, I did say to Juliet, you know, it would be nice to keep channels open so your mum can see Declan. We've had a very complicated relationship, like that, Bob.
By Joan. By Joan, yeah.
Very similar situation.
Similar situation, and it's only in the end I said, Juliet, I love you, and I've tried my hardest to make Juliet feel loved and wanted. She doesn't. We're a very touchy family, you know.
She gives me a hug and I run away because I'm just so not used to it.
And she does. She gets so jealous. She gets so upset. But I say, Declan is a happy little boy. He is a lovely boy. And
but nobody's disputing he's not happy or that he's not lovely.
Yeah,
what we're asking is why is she depriving her mother of seeing... And mother... grandmother... But she obviously does feels it's important because she's tried through you. She's also tried through the courts. Or she's trying through the courts.
She didn't try. No, she didn't try to get
didn't
through
care
to you.
whether or not they was going to end up in the streets.
Can you imagine your daughter stopping you from seeing your grandson?
Not my daughter, no, but my son has. It's devastating. It's so hurtful. Not only am I missing out, but so's the little girl. She's missing too. And in your case, your son will miss as well.
He's not going to miss anything.
Hang
He won't miss a thing. He doesn't even know who she is.
You're saying it. You're making the decision for him, though, aren't you?
Yes,
You're
but when
deciding
he is
won't miss a
old
thing.
enough to make that decision, then he can go. I will never, ever stand in his way, but I will also tell him how she treated me and how the family has treated me.
Why would you want to do that?
So that he goes in with his eyes open and he won't go in blind and have his mind taken away from me.
You're not worried that you're using him as a weapon?
No.
Against your mum?
No, because it was her that told me that she didn't want anything to do
Why
with me.
involve him in the dispute between you and your mum? Whatever you think about your mum, whatever your feelings are, that's his grandmother. And he can have a relationship with his grandmother. It might not be a great relationship. Grandmothers can be just as difficult, and I know it's hard to say this in front of you lot, but they can be, can't they? They're not all perfect because they're grandmothers, not all perfect because they're old. Old people, if they were wicked when they were young, they can still be wicked when they're old. But it is his grandmother with whom he can have some kind of relationship. And is it necessary to kind of interfere in that relationship by creating a barrier between him and her?
We tried. When Declan was born, I tried to get
She was there.
in the birth, the lot, right? And then, like, after Declan was born, I got attacked, yeah? And, like, I was a security guard and I got attacked, yeah? And, like, we told her about me getting attacked and losing the house, yeah? And she turned her back on us.
All she could do was scream and shout at us.
Yeah.
And we lost our home
Can I
because
ask
he
a
couldn't go
question?
to
Yes,
work.
you can, Maureen.
If you're feeling like this now, and then one day when your son is 15 or 16, and he said, in spite of all what goes on and what your mum and dad or whatever relative wants to go to see, are you still going to feel this, you can't go?
No, I will say to him, this is how they treated me. Just go
Yeah,
in with
but
your
that's
eyes
you.
open.
What about him?
Please, just go in with your eyes
Yeah,
open.
but what about him?
But don't let them take your mind over and say what a wonderful person
Yeah,
they
he's
are.
gonna be-
And twist their minds against me.
No, he's going to be at an age when he makes his own mind up.
Hang on.
Do you
Peter.
allow any contact at all? And what about presents? What about phone calls? What about
She hasn't
Christmas?
bothered.
Because that could.
She hasn't bothered at all.
could you
She
get a-
couldn't even send him an Easter egg.
Could you get a family friend or
I
someone?
don't care if
or
I've done that.
a
I've
doctor
sent
or a
it.
teacher
She
or
sent
someone?
photographs. I went later, I
yeah.
got a solicitor's letter saying that she wants to take me to court to get access to
there's
him.
no way.
Yes,
That
but-
is such the wrong way. If she'd gone to Sandy and said, can you get their address? Can you talk to Juliet?
There is
I would love
access.
to see Juliet and talk about this situation. Then fine, I would have probably agreed to that.
Probably.
Have you thought about
But-
suggesting family mediation to your mother?
No.
She suggested
Sort of
it to
what?
me, and I'm
Family
sorry, but
mediation.
every time I get in the same room as that, there is just a complete and utter row. And I'm just
okay,
I
but
can
in
never.
family mediation,
This is
you've
why
got
I've
a
come
trained
here
person
today.
there.
Is because I want to get my point across, because it's the only way I can do it, because she shouts me down and I can never say what I am really feeling.
Okay.
I think that the trouble is there's a lot of misunderstanding. I think that a lot of things are said and they're taken the wrong way, and what we as grandparents are trying to convey are misconstrued.
She makes that
Well, what happened to you,
excuse all the
Valerie?
time.
What happened to you?
Well, I'm one of the ladies who's divorced, and I've got grandchildren that I'm not allowed to see, and I don't really know why.
Who stops you seeing them?
And my daughter.
How can your daughter stop you seeing your grandchildren?
Well, it's so heartbreaking, because even if you don't behave the way that your child would like you to behave towards them, it may be because you've had similar experiences yourself.
How long has it been since you've seen them?
2 years.
What does it feel like?
It just feels as if part of you has died, not only not seeing the grandchildren, but seeing your own child as well.
A part of you has died?
A part of you has died. It's like a terrible bereavement.
And that's because you haven't seen them for 2 years?
Because, yes, and
Do you think about them a lot?
I think about them all the time. They're part of your life once you've had a child.
And now, and you think of them every day?
I think of them every day.
What do you think, how would you say that what it has done to your life, then not being able to see your grandchildren, that you think about every day, that you haven't seen for 2 years, and which you say is like a bereavement? Has it affected your life?
Well, it just makes you terribly sad.
Diana, you're going to come back, aren't you? Were you listening to her, what she said? That she said she hasn't seen them, not prevented by a daughter-in-law, which is what you are, but prevented from seeing them by her own daughter.
Can I just
Now, let me
correct
finish.
something?
And she said, yeah, of course you can, I want you, but she is saying not seeing them is doing to her. He's making her 2 years. She thinks of them every day. She worries about them, and she feels like a bereavement. It's an awful thing to feel.
I mean, I can actually relate to you because I've been similar in your position as a young person, and you know, I can understand.
Come, Miss Juliet, come and sit next to Diana, because you're in the same situation as Diana, and you can help and give us support. What did you want to say, Diana?
It's not just myself
She's
that
in the same
doesn't want
position as
Joan
you.
to see my daughter. It's actually Joan's son that doesn't want her to see his daughter as well. So it's actually
The
both
father
of
of
us.
Chloe.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chloe's father. We both agree on the same thing. The only reason why he isn't here today is because he actually works nights and he's looking after my little girl to be here.
He has a choice to make, doesn't he?
Pardon?
He has a choice to make.
What choice
Because
is that?
the choice is, if he talks to his mum and lets his mum see that child, you're going to be cross with
That's
him.
not true. I've
Yeah?
always said
if he,
to Matthew...
If he sides with you, he's going to upset his
No,
mum.
I've
He
always
has nowhere
said-
to go.
I've always said to Matthew, if he chooses to get back in contact with his mum, then that is fine by me.
But it makes it
he
difficult
doesn't
for him,
want
Diana.
to.
It makes it difficult. If my wife I would hate my wife to put me in that position, but I have no doubt. I'd kind of say, don't be silly, and I'd argue with her. But in the end of the day, I'd stick by my wife.
And you're wrong
Quite
there
right.
again.
But I might start to. Of course they have, but you also love your wife, and your wife's the most important thing in your world, even more important than the children. All right, and I would stick by my wife, but I might start growing a little bit of resentment inside me. I might start to get angry over time. There might be something festering that I might say eventually, "Why did you do that to me, Dan? It's you that cut me off from my
So
family.
when
and
me
you
and
cut
Matthew
the child."
have splitting up in the past, how come he's not got back in contact with his mum?
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, it's probably things on both sides, aren't there? And you're
There
finding
is,
it
there's a
difficult
lot.
to
It's not-
talk
it's
to
not
each
just
other,
me.
honestly. No, absolutely. I'm saying there are things on both sides. And I gather you might have disapproved, perhaps, of them living together very... Well, maybe not.
No,
but I
no,
think
I
there are
felt
things
they
on
were a
both
bit young,
sides.
but-
It's difficult to talk to each other. But surely it'd be good to try and resolve it if you could, for several reasons. There is Chloe growing up, and at some point she's going to want relationships
My
with her
daughter doesn't miss out on anything, and if she wants to get in
when she's
touch with
growing up,
Joe
you
when
can't-
she's
you can't
old
decide
enough-
for her all the
No,
time.
I'm not going to.
And
When she's older, if she wants to
Joan's
get in
missing
touch
out
with
too
Joe,
on
that's
the
up
joys
to
of
her.
being a grandmother.
Diana, listen to Peter.
And there are important joys of being a grandparent and things they usually can contribute, although, of course, sometimes the difficulties. I just wonder if you need some mediation, really. Someone in the family who knows you both, that you both respect, or a doctor or a priest or someone from social services or someone like that, teacher, who could just bring you together and talk about it and see what could be arranged. You know, it might not be full, sort of normal, easy relationships that you'd hope for, to start with anyway. That's what I was trying to say earlier, too. But take it in steps. You know, start off with a phone call, a present, and then
Dan,
build up from
is there anything that could help mediate between you two?
To be honest with you, Matthew's family, not one person in Matthew's family, have had anything to do with us since we stopped speaking to Joan anyway. So how can you mediate between a family if none of the family want to have contact with you?
Robert.
Russell? Russell?
Well, there's a lot of things that I get on with my nan, and I've got a little brother that I'm not allowed to see and my nan's not allowed to see, and that just eats away in my nan all the time. And
I've
But it all
I've been in
depends
that
on what
position
situation
myself.
you're in. Every situation is different.
I
And
tried
in my
seriously
situation, I
with
mean,
the
she wasn't a good
ex-daughter.
mother, so how can she be
Yeah,
a
but
good
it
grandmother?
doesn't-
Russell, go on.
no matter on the situation, it's just that I get on great with my nan. Maybe she hasn't been there all the time. I don't get like things here and there like you're going on about, but I get to spend time with my nan, and that's something that's very important to me.
That's something Chloe didn't get.
Are you saying it's important now?
Why is it? Why is she losing out on? She's got a mum and dad that love her more than anything. She's got other grandparents that care for her more than anything. She doesn't ask for Joan. She doesn't ask about her auntie or her niece.
Can there be
Hang on, Anne. Yeah, go on, Anne. What are you going to say?
My little boy's 2.5. My husband and I separated, going through a divorce. There's a lot of animosity between myself and his family, which we'll not go into. And I've gone through the anger that you've both felt in that, no, why should they see him? They haven't got right to, you know, they've done this to me. But they've done it to me. They love him. And
Yeah,
they've
but if
got...
they
She's
can
not
do it
done
to
it
a
to me,
daughter,
she's done
she
it
can
to
do
me.
it
The thing
my
is, I'm
son.
his
And
mother.
at
They're not
different
bringing him
size.
up. They're not. They are spending. My soon-to-be ex-husband has him every other weekend, and he lives with his family. So they've got to see him. He has got cousins, he's got aunts and uncles, he's my little boy, that he has got a right to have contact with. But also, you're both saying that when they get older, then they can choose. But then they're going to be old enough to hear two different sides. And then they're going to be, who do I believe? Mummy?
And then you know what? They make a judgment, and they think you're both balmy.
That's it.
But they do. And they don't really... Come on, aren't we? We've all been there in one way or another, haven't we? We all know, at an early age, we can make assessments of our family. We can assess our mother's character and lover, and our fathers, or stepfathers in my case, and our grandparents. And we can know that some are a bit dippy, or a bit daft, or a bit not... or whatever, but we can still love them and still have a relationship with them and still know that the parents might have animosities to each other, but it's none of our business. And it doesn't in any way derogate from their love for you or for her, but they can have a relationship with you both. That it doesn't interfere.
Joan, it's my problem with the way she
You're
treats
making it Chloe's
not me.
problem too.
No, it's not the problem with the way Joan
Chloe.
treats me. It's the way she treats Chloe. She doesn't act like it.
My mother-in-law, and I sort of don't want to cause any offence in saying this, when my baby was tiny, she couldn't feed him purely because she was frightened if he choked. It was a fear that she had. It wasn't anything personal. And I think she would have problems looking after him on her own. It's her own sort of... She's worried. It's nerves
Fears,
in case of anything. It's nothing personal. But she doesn't love him any less, and I accept that. As much as her and I now don't get on, I know she loves this little boy, and he's got a right to that love. And why he's growing up...
If I can say the first thing to the young lady...
To Diana.
If I can say the first thing to Diana, with the people here are about a wee bit older than you, and you can give a wee bit of experience. I never had contact with my daughter from when she was 9 months to when I found I was a grandfather through a phone call. And you can never get the years back that you lose the contact. And we all wish we could turn back the clock and do things differently, but we can. But the one thing I learned, and the one thing I haven't heard so far, is what's in the best interest of the child.
Are you saying
That's the most important part. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I learned in the situation I was with my grandson to forget all the rest of the, I better watch my words, forget all the rest of the nonsense and concentrate what's in his best interest, not in my best interest or anybody else's.
My mum and dad separated when I was younger, and I didn't have contact with my dad's parents. Now, my mum always let us decide what we wanted to do, and I don't resent my mum for not letting me see them, because she never stopped me. We chose to do that ourselves when we were at an age where we understood. And I don't feel that I've missed out on something. I had grandparents that cared for me and treated me the way they did my cousins. She doesn't do that.
Well, with respect, I'm slightly older than you, and I regret the time I missed with my daughter growing up. I can say that from my standpoint. You maybe can't say it because you're maybe not got as much experience in life.
All I'm saying is I don't miss not having my dad around. I haven't had my dad around for about 15, 16 years. Or my grandparents, yeah. And when she's old enough to make the choice, then she can, can't she? But she's 3. She's not old enough to make a decision on whether she wants to be treated differently from her cousin or not, is she?
Diana, does it occur to you that you're taking anything away from Chloe?
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't occur to you?
Because she's got a happy family life.
Half her genes, half what makes her the person she is, the other people in the family, the uncles, the aunts, the memories, the family stories, the photograph albums.
She hasn't even got any photos of my daughter anymore. She tore them all up, so...
Isn't Chloe losing?
The kids want to know all that. I mean, what Angela is saying is things that we push towards.
So I say to
I've
my
got a grandson.
daughter,
Yesterday, I was swimming with him, and we were in the changing room together, and what did he want to talk about? As I'm drying him, and I'm drying between his toes, because I'm telling him how important... He's 6. And he's saying to me, did your dad teach you to swim? He calls me Gaga. Gaga. And I said, no, because my father was killed in the war. What did you... He wants to know. He wants to know everything, all right? He wants to... He's not yet perhaps got the concept right about age. I don't know, perhaps Peter will tell me yet. He's not... He knows people are old, but death is a funny thing for him, probably yet. But he clearly wants to know where he comes from. The family relationships. Who does what, when. That is exactly what Angela's talking about, is a kind of the folk story.
So when my daughter cries
culture.
because her grandmother doesn't turn up when she says she's going to, and she's only 2 years old, how do I explain to her that once again we've been let down after saying to her, your nan's coming to see you, and she doesn't come?
Angela?
I really pity you for your anger and your sorrow.
You are angry, aren't you?
Well, do you blame me? I've been brought on a show to talk about something that's personal that I have explained to her on our own on several occasions. Yes, what about the last phone call when you said to me, here's my new phone number and address, I'll leave it to you to get in touch with me. Next minute I know you're bringing me on a show to discuss it.
I beg your pardon, I didn't bring you on here.
No, but I wasn't going to let you come on and talk about me.
That was your right.
No.
That was your right.
Let's get this clear, because if you were brought on, dragged on, dragooned on,
I
bullied
didn't
on...
mean it like that. I meant I had no choice because she was coming on to talk about my family.
OK, but it's important for me that I say this, because I won't allow any of that, because this is my show, and it's my company, and I won't let people... No, I'm not... You're misunderstanding what I'm saying, I think. I mean, I won't allow anybody to be bullied or blackmailed or bribed to come in here. You come here...
I didn't say that.
I know, I just want to make it clear. OK, perhaps I'm making too much of it. You came here because Joe, whatever it is, Joe probably rang in, and then you were offered the choice, as we have to and we do, to anybody who's going to come along to speak, and you chose to come along and
yeah, only because if I hadn't, she would have come on and talked about it anyway, wouldn't she?
Well, maybe, or maybe not. But there are rules about that, and there are also rules that never mind what the BBC imposed, what I imposed personally. Nobody comes onto my show unwillingly. All right, you're all here by choice or what have you. Let's move on, because some of the grandparents here feel, whatever the reasons for the... you're one of them, Valerie, aren't you? That the law doesn't really value the role of a grandparent. Would you like to see the law change so that you can have greater... In what way?
Well, I'd like it to be automatic. Just as a mother, it's automatic for a mother and a father to see their child. It should be automatic for a grandfather and a grandmother to see.
What do you mean by automatic? How could that? How
it
could
should it just be natural. It should go without saying. It shouldn't.
What, that you could have a right to see the grandchild whenever you wanted to?
Well, no. Obviously, you compromised. You make it convenient for both sides.
How do you compromise?
By talking civilly to each other.
Well, why do you need the law then?
And turning
Why do you need the law? Why don't you just compromise by talking civilly?
You know, it takes both of you to talk civilly, and if you're getting hostility and then accusations and abuse, then you can't talk sensibly and reach a compromise.
Do you feel the law has failed you then?
I don't know yet, because I've only got to a certain level. There's been letters as a very last resort to my daughter which have been ignored from a solicitor, and there's been invitations to mediation by which my daughter could go on her own without my being there, so she can explain fully, like you have done, how she feels, and then they would see me separately and then see together. But unfortunately, I'm sorry that she didn't come on today.
Do we need a change in the law, Andrea, to give grandparents greater rights of the kind that Valerie's talking about?
I think what Valerie's talking about, tell me if I'm wrong, is that grandparents, when they want to make applications to have contact with grandchildren, have to get the permission of the court, whereas parents can apply to the court by right. Is that what the problem is?
Well, we don't even know whether we'll get the permission.
No,
you
right.
see. It's very...
Well, perhaps I could explain it like this. I think this gentleman talked about the children's best... Andrew, you talked about what's in the best interests of children, and the law, the courts, like all of us, I think, are most concerned with what's best for children. And as I think you've said, when the conflict is so bad that you have to go to court, it's reached a bad state. And from the child's point of view, having to be the subject of court applications, of essentially tug-of-love court applications, is an incredibly stressful, distressing experience, can last months, and what the children go through, let alone the parents and the grandparents, obviously is distressing.
But before you get to that
I know, what I was going to
stage...
say was, perhaps I could just explain, that a lot of people might want to make applications to have contact with children. Obviously the parents, grandparents, very important people, and let no one say that the courts don't value the existence and the contribution of grandparents.
Surely that's the problem. The court does not value
Well,
us.
let's just talk about asking permission for the moment, just dealing with that. Children could be the subject of applications from uncles, from aunts, older sisters and brothers, even unrelated people who've played a very, very important, significant part in children's lives. And the court maybe is trying to protect children by having a kind of filter so that people, only parents, the very closest relatives, can actually make applications as of right, and other people
have to show a case.
Have to show that there is a case.
Right, yeah.
And if they do
what
show
they're
a
saying
case,
is that grandparents are actually prima facie more important than uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, whatever it is, and that therefore they ought not to have to make that case in the first instance. They ought to be prima facie accepted as not equal, of course, to parents, but as valuable parts of this child's family.
I think there's a good case.
And right, that's the first thing.
Do you want me to answer that first?
Yeah.
Obviously, the law is an incredibly blunt instrument.
Are you saying the law is? Are you saying what the law as it is now? That's the fact. You're saying that you think that works okay.
I don't think anybody would say that the law can work perfectly. Lines have to be drawn, and I think it's reasonable, perhaps, to say there's parents and there's other important relatives. Of course, grandparents are very important relatives, but each case.
So you're saying the filter's okay?
I'm saying that it's not perfect, but it's probably the best that can be devised in difficult circumstances.
I personally feel the law is an ass.
Oh, well, we know that, Maureen.
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean, you take a person like myself. I dearly love my grandson. I'm not allowed to see him, not allowed to reach him, fair enough. We've been all through that. But when you do go to a solicitor, and somebody like myself, I'm absolutely scared stiff of these sort of people, people in authority. I get there, I state my case, and then it comes down to the subject of money. Now, my pension is £48 a week, which is not a lot. And I was told if I want to take and fight and see my grandson for half an hour a day or once a week, I've got to find £15,000. Now, where do I go from there?
That's the estimate of what it will cost you to take it through the court.
To court.
Can't you get legal aid?
I asked for legal aid, and all I'm allowed is £2,500. So where does the rest come from?
Well, that's another point that you're making, which is whether or not there should be more money available, whether people should be able to get legal aid and more money.
We still need to talk about this child.
But I think what it does show is that one of the enormous stresses involved in court proceedings is the cost of them. That happens whenever parents separate, costs of applications for contact. It is a terrible factor. It adds to the stress. But where's the money going to come from?
Do you feel that grandparents need greater legal rights?
I think it should be easier for them.
Yes.
I don't think
To
to
make
have to
it
go through
to
this
actually get
initial
into the court.
asking for leave.
Yeah.
After parents, grandparents are the most important figures in the family, usually. If we look, for instance, at care of young children, parents are out working. It's usually grandparents who are stepping in there to look after the young ones. They're a tremendous source of support normally in families. So I think there should be an automatic
Well, more
right
than
to
that,
apply. It doesn't mean they have
did you
automatic
see the
rights to
report
see
from
them.
the Roundtree Trust yesterday, which said they came up, they said, with surprising results. It didn't surprise me because I've had kids here from the ages, the whole studio full of them, from the age of 6 to 16, nothing but kids, talking about the consequences of the divorce. So I'd heard all this before, but one of the things apparently that surprised the researchers, which was published yesterday, that came out of it, that the two categories of people who are most important to kids in broken homes, from the ages of 5 to 10, were their friends and their grandparents, because they needed to have the emotional support. It was the grandparents that talked to them about the breakup more than their parents. It was the grandparents who explained the reasons for it more than their parents. It was the grandparents who gave them kind of loving support within the context of the breakup more than their parents. Now, that itself, in a different context, shows the importance that perhaps the courts don't realise. Like the researchers didn't realise, but the courts didn't recognise.
But one point about legal resorts, though. Only about a quarter of grandparents who use this really find it satisfactory because of all the acrimony it brings about. I mean, imagine you start bringing a legal action to see Chloe. That's going to, in a way, make things worse, isn't it, probably?
And also the length of time.
Really, just to finish off, mediation, I think, is a much preferable alternative if you can get some good mediation going, like you were.
And the length of time.
What I was going to say was, if it's for the criminal law, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. In this sort of scenario, it seems that you're guilty before you've got to prove your innocence.
Well, grandparents are really important then, aren't they? Really important.
I think we're going to get into a situation where you've not only got grandparents asking for their rights, you've got aunts, you've got uncles, and you've got everybody in the street. You might as well go to a court of law when you're having a baby, register it there, make it a water court, and then ask everybody to take a share. That is what's going to happen.
It isn't actually going to happen, is it?
It's not going to actually, no, but it's...
people won't do that.
The way... You've heard people here that are arguing...
Are grandparents important?
They are important. They have their rights as grandparents to be supportive, to be loving to their family, to their children and to their grandchildren. And their children should support their grandparents in the same respect. If we're going to get into an argument...
I thought you had the view that grandparents were kind of
but I do have
a bit
the view,
obsolete.
No, I have the view that grandparents are there to be grandparents. That's as far as it goes.
What does that mean?
To give love and support.
I thought you had this... I've got this... I remember this image of what you said about the being golden oldies, and they ought to be kind of...
They've got their views. They've got their views, and there are... A lot of them are Victorian. A lot of them are... they're inflicting their points of view on their children, which contradict what their children want for their children.
Oh, so you see grandparents as kind of out of date, old-fashioned.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is, I'm remembering what you said to the researchers. Summing up from what you're... The gist of what you're saying now is that they're out of date, old-fashioned, and likely to be interfering.
But they have their place.
But their place is kind of kept very much...
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, not kept with...
Can I just say...
tell him it's appalling.
It is appalling.
Hold on. What was going to... No, I want appalling. I want Mrs. Appalling first. Tell him it's appalling.
It is absolutely appalling. We're twice your age to start with. We've all lived a long time. We've learned what's good about human nature. And we tolerate
You've had your time, he says. You've passed it. That's what he's saying. You're irrelevant and you're interfering.
I'm absolutely full of beans, Jim. I am.
You'd give him a run for his money, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I certainly would.
Can I just say, I've got great parents, but there can only be one real authority figure in the nucleus, which has got to be the parents. But the grandparents are important because when they were bringing up their own children, they didn't have the patience. But now as grandparents, they have a lot more patience.
True.
We're out there working really hard. In today's society, it's a 21st century people, women, men. In the 40s, they were at home, they had more time for the kids, they were around more. We can't be. We have to look after our families more. So we need the grandparents. We need the emotional support, because I'm a divorced mum as well. So we need the emotional support for the kids. We need the love. We need the unity. And without them, sorry, Robert, without them...
But we don't need the battles.
We don't need the battles. We don't need to be interfering. I understand, but the importance here is communication and understanding. Exactly. And if you have those two things, then you have a unit. If you have breakdown in those two things, then people are going to court. And what I'm going to say is really important is the fact that the casualties of this is the children. Absolutely. Why hurt these innocent little kids that all they know and want is love at this age and security?
I myself was, in fact, a casualty. I was in care most of my life, and I was refused access to my grandmother.
Are you sitting next to you?
Yes, by the local authority, the social work. And I've grown up without the love and things that she would have taught me as I grew up. And I feel I'll never regain those things.
So when he says they're redundant, or they should be kept in a place which is a kind of distant, remote, far away. And he's nodding assent to what I'm using what I think are provocative words. Thinking any minute he'd say, don't you put those words in my mouth. And he's nodding in assent to them. Oh, he's got all these terrible views then. I might as well just summarise it like that. Is he right?
No, grandparents are the building blocks of your family. They're what?
When you sit and you listen to a young lady that's withholding rights to a grandparent, and there's a feud going on, they're arguing, a toss.
But it doesn't have to be like that.
No, it doesn't have to be like that. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. Grandparents
you're not going to prescribe the actions, the relationship of parents, grandparents and grandchildren on the basis of one or two family feuds, are we? We're not going to take that as the norm and apply it to everybody and say, because Diana and Joan don't get on...
No, there are different cases for everything.
Of course there are.
But in the case of where we've got arguments going on like grandparents, we are going to court arguing the fact You know, we've got a right to see that grandchild. Like I said,
the argument is actually happening between the adults. It has got nothing to do with the child. What has the child said or done for that child to be losing out?
But where is the support from the grandparent? If the grandparent is loving and caring, work something out with the other person.
But it sounds like Diana, it sounds like you're...
I've tried working it out.
Well, I think
I really
that...
have.
Hang on, sorry, Maureen.
I think that you've all got to have more compassion. Grandparents and the children need to be a little more humble. I think if the girl over there perhaps thought about the way she behaved, she might realise...
There's two of them. You mean Juliet as...
Juliet.
Yeah, or Diana, yeah, both of them.
You could just feel that perhaps you could say, look, Mum, I'm sorry if you think I am doing the wrong thing with my daughter. But it will give her the opening. Perhaps she would say that she was sorry. Could we get together? But sometimes grandparents can be a great help. In my own case, my daughter left her husband with the 2 children and went to live with another partner. Now, I was a great help because those 2 children were between the papa and the new partner. Let's call him Morris. And so they, well, Grandma, you mustn't mention Morris to Papa. So I said, why not? Oh, Papa doesn't like Morris. Oh, no, don't talk about Morris, not with Papa. So I said, oh, when you're with Papa, you can come to Grandma's, that's fine. Because I love Papa. He's my son-in-law. And I love Morris. Look how good he is to you. Providing you with a home and doing all these sort of things. And it was so wonderful. They go to Papa's one weekend, they're with Mummy the other weekend, and they've got extra grandparents, and at Christmas they have 3 Christmases. It can be an advantage.
Beneficial.
And everybody...
She's making separation sound like as if it's something we all want, isn't it? Grandparent here, left holding the baby. We're going to do a programme on that. Grandparents holding the baby. 08705 100 771. If you want to come on that programme, if you're the grandparent that's been left holding the baby of your son, daughter, or indeed son-in-law, daughter-in-law, for whatever reason, because they've been you're bereaved, or because perhaps they are incapable of bringing them up. Are you the child that was brought up by your grandparents? Was that a really great, wonderful, beneficial thing? Of course it was. Don't you dare say anything else. Or was it terrible? Did you miss out? Because however loving and good your grandparents were in bringing you up, it's a different kind of relationship to that which you feel you've missed by not having your mother or father around. Whatever it is, we'd like to hear from you. We want you to come and sit here and tell us about it. 08705 100 771. Peter, are grandparents important? He says, with this no question mark behind it, really. What's the value of them?
Well, I've already mentioned how they can look after the young ones when the parents are out of work, for example.
But I mean in kind of terms of development,
but also,
psychologically, emotionally.
It's a happy relationship, usually. They're doing all sorts of nice activities. You mentioned about taking your grandson swimming, you know, going fishing, shopping, outings and so on. Someone said they've got more time for that in a way.
That isn't necessarily grandparents.
No, it's not necessarily. But
aunts,
you know,
uncles, friends, neighbours could do that.
Yes. But normally the grandparent relationship's a close one because of the biological bond. There's an assumption of love, isn't there? There's an assumption that this is a loving relationship and a caring relationship. Also, I think in adolescence, sometimes things get a little bit more fraught with the parents. You know, adolescents back off a bit, and the quarrels and so on, and often the grandparents are people they can go and talk to about that.
Like a neutral party.
A sort of neutral party. Because by and large, grandparents
But also
now
a party that won't judge you.
Exactly. By and large, in contradiction to what our friend there's saying, on the whole, grandparents now accept they're not the head of the family, they're not the arbiters for discipline. It was different before the Second World War, I think. And of course there are exceptions, and maybe you came across some exceptions, but by and large, grandparents accept that role, which I think is a good thing.
The matriarch role has gone. Yeah.
That's right. So they're more helpers, supporters, confidants, but they've got a really important role to play there, I think.
But I feel like Val. She says she feels bereaved. I feel bereaved twice. Because first losing the son and then losing that grandson.
Yeah, I can totally understand your situation. And my mother-in-law's actually sat behind me.
But there's the bitterness that stops it.
And my son absolutely worships the ground she walks on, and his granddad. I mean, it's actually it's actually my husband's stepfather. And he worships the ground that he walks on. I don't deny the fact that he's got grandparents. I would love him to see my mum.
It's
but
extraordinary,
it's the
Angela, isn't it,
fact
that you've got
she's
this.
shut herself
You would have
away
thought that if
from
you're bringing
me
a
as
child
well.
into a family,
She doesn't want to know
the
me.
one thing you want to give to a child as a parent is love, all right? And you want them to feel safe and loved and secure. And you want them to surround them with it, don't you? And part of them surrounding with it is surrounding them with other people who feel the same about them. And one of the I feel about my grandson loves it when we have big family parties, and he says, "Is this all my family?" Yes,
Yeah.
they're all on your side, Zach,
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
They're all there for you. And you can see the child kind of growing and preening when he feels that these big people are all there for him. Isn't that part of it too, that you would expect that a child grows because he can see he's got other people, not just his just like Peter was saying, not just a family
I think
row
there's
that he can go
nothing
to.
more important for a child, honestly, than to feel that it lives in this warm hammock, this network of people who are related. My grandchildren, I've got 5 grandchildren. One daughter, bless her heart, gave me 5 grandchildren, and my son has a son. And the 5 grandchildren come from a very large family. They can probably name 40 cousins. They've been to stay with most of them. They go on holidays with not all of them at once, thank God. And nothing gives them a greater sense of confidence and security and a kind of certainty about who they are and where they come from than this family of people who may fight, they quarrel, some of them like each other, some of them don't. There are the rogues, the villains, but they tend to look alike.
Like society.
They sound alike, they have things in common. There are wedding photographs, christening photographs, and I'm absolutely sure that the hardest thing for a parent to learn is your child matters more than you do. And your child's feelings are more important, however justified your rage. And I understand, Diana, God, I understand. You're mad as hell.
We can all see her anger.
But
And obviously-
that's not your
This is
child's
upset.
rage.
It's hurt.
Okay, it's hurt.
And you get so hurt by your parents. You don't want that hurt passed on to your own child, so you pull them
But
away.
grandparents
It's
do
like
it differently
you
with their
wouldn't put your
grandchildren.
child into danger, and you don't want your child to be hurt. So why put them in that situation?
Grandparents do it differently second time around.
All right.
That's
My
the
mother
way
hasn't. She's got other grandchildren, and she's treated them the same. She
okay.
never sees
Juliet,
them.
leave it there. Because I've had a terrible time with you lot this morning, and I do want to end on a positive, helpful note, because I don't want us to go away with Diana feeling upset and angry and expressing the way she is. I'd like to have helped Diana. I'd like to have sorted it out. I don't think I can. And I certainly can't in these circumstances. And Diana, I'm going to give you the last word, but I want it to be a positive word.
I haven't got anything positive
Okay,
to
well,
say.
then I can't. I just want you to tell me what you feel about your granddaughter. I want you to talk, Joan, and tell me the kind of feelings you would have. I know what I would say, and Angela has kind of articulated many of them just by her eyes when she was talking about her family and how the hammock, she said, surround them. The hammock's not really the quite image, it's just a circle or something, but anyway. Expressed it to me.
I think about her every day of my life.
Yeah.
There isn't a day that goes by when I don't think about all 3 of them.
And when you're thinking...
I've also lost my son through all this. I haven't spoken to my son. The last time I saw my son was on July the 30th last year, when he just mouthed the word through the window to me, which began with F, and I won't say any more than that. It was his birthday. His birthday, and 2 days after that, I took his presents around. Those presents were returned to me in September in the post. He clearly didn't want them. That was very, very upsetting to me.
How important are your grandchildren?
My grandchildren are very important to me, Robert.
How important?
I can't show how important Chloe is to me because I have no access to her.
Do you want to do the best for you or the best for them?
The best for them.
And the best for them is somehow or other trying to resolve this problem.
I would
and
love
are you
to
going
try
to resolve that?
I would love to. I would love to.
You think you have problems? Look at the problems we have here, and we can't ever all resolve them. Sometimes we do. This morning, unfortunately, perhaps we haven't. But who knows? Things happen afterwards here as you go through the little rooms and the corridors towards hospitality. Perhaps something good might come out of this. Let's hope so. But remember, whatever you do, not what you want is not important, whether you're the parent or the grandparent, not your feelings, not your emotions, not how you feel. What is important always is what is right and proper and best for the child. Take care of yourselves. I bet you couldn't have predicted this, could you? We're doing a programme about predictions. So, if you're always running to your psychic to predict your future, call us now. 08 705 100 771. You know that number, don't you? 08 705 100 771. Have you had your future predicted? Do you think psychics and clairvoyants rip people off? Are you a psychic or clairvoyant who can see into the future?
Feet up because we've got pure sunshine on House Call today. Yes, we're going totally tropical in the garden with Andy and the gang. Gordon and Craig, our own little rays of sunshine, make an impression in the hallway, turning the dingy into the desirable. 2 great ideas for you in the conservatory with Graham Wynne, and dig out those old fire grates and pokers. They could be worth an absolute fortune. Paul Hayes and Dave Barbie will reveal all. Phone lines are open 08000 928 925. We'll be live after the news. Let me in, chaps.
I think she's actually getting quite trashed.
Oh dear, Sam's really lost it.
This is shocking TV.
If you thought that was shocking, you should see what the team suggest.
What you're going to have is a how to strip lesson.
Trust me, you do not want to miss this show. Would like to meet Wednesday at 8 on BBC Two.
Join Philip Schofield this Saturday night.
Let's play Winning Lines!
With the Thunderball and Lottery Extra Draws live. Plus this week, the National Lottery has a guaranteed Super Draw jackpot of £23.4 million. The National Lottery Winning Lines. Tomorrow at 7:25 on BBC One.
A news summary now on BBC One with Anna Ford.
Good morning. President Bush is preparing to visit the scene of devastation in New York left by the 2 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. The president will see for himself the immense problems facing the rescue teams, which were hampered overnight by heavy rain. No more survivors have been found. Investigators in New York say that they're close to finding one of the black box flight recorders. So far, 5,000 people have been confirmed missing or dead. As many as 500 of them are thought to be British. Police have reportedly arrested 10 people at Kennedy and LaGuardia airports in New York, including one with a false pilot's license. Security alerts in the United States are preventing air services from returning to normal. However, the first flight from America since air links were restored has landed at Heathrow. The US authorities are only allowing a small number of flights of American and Canadian carriers to use their airspace. Afghanistan has denied that the man named as the chief suspect, Osama bin Laden, was behind Tuesday's attacks on the United States. The Taliban ambassador to Pakistan has said that neither the former Saudi nor Afghanistan itself had the capacity to train suicide pilots. The Taliban regime has been accused of sheltering bin Laden for several years. America says it's trying to persuade Pakistan to help if it chooses to strike at targets within neighbouring Afghanistan. In Britain and Europe, a 3-minute silence will be held at 11 o'clock. Both houses of Parliament have been recalled to debate the attacks in America. The Prime Minister described the events in America as an act of wickedness for which there can be no justification. At noon, the Queen will be among those attending a special interdenominational service of remembrance at St Paul's Cathedral. And there'll be a special programme here on BBC One to mark the 3-minute silence. A Silence for America comes on air at 5 to 11. I'll be back with another news bulletin just after that programme.
Hello there. Autumn has really taken a grip of our weather over the last week or so. It should feel a good deal better today, certainly in the south. Temperatures getting up to 18 or 19 degrees, feeling better because of lighter winds and certainly more in the way of sunshine to be had. Further north and west, the thicker cloud and outbreaks of rain spreading across Scotland and Northern Ireland through the afternoon. That band of rain will continue to slip its way southwards as we go through the night, eventually clearing away from the south first thing tomorrow morning, and then a cool weekend with a mixture of some sunshine but also quite a few showers. Goodbye.
You're with BBC One with House Call next.
It was like a dream come true for me.
The archaeological discovery of a lifetime. Unique.
This wasn't an ordinary mummy. She appeared to be a royal Persian princess.
Priceless.
I've come across figures for this: $50 million, £35 million.
But this mummy conceals a horrifying secret.
Slowly, words were making sense to me.
Of modern-day murder and conspiracy.
It's immoral, it's unethical, it is illegal.
Horizon reveals the extraordinary story of the mystery of the Persian mummy. Thursday at 9 on BBC Two.
The Addis family.
Happy birthday, darling!
Never afraid of a challenge.
First or second?
Second!
A triumph, my son!
Never short on emotion.
The future. Keep away from my business. All right?
Always chasing their dream.
We're the luckiest people on earth.
Fresh drama for Sunday evenings. Down to Earth continues this Sunday at 8 on BBC One.
Live to Birmingham now on BBC One for Friday's House Call.
We've got that